Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.
Hello, Railcast fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Railcast Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Savedich, and we are going over two new signings that happened last week on January 15th that I missed on the previous podcast that I put out because it was after I recorded it and was able to put it out. So here's that podcast about Miguel Sierra and Carlos Machado. Machado, I don't think has any correlations or relationships with Manny Machado, so that I'm aware of. Maybe they are. Who knows? Not sure. So we'll get into Miguel Sierra here real quick. He is an infielder that was traded to Gary South Shore last year for Daniel Langlois and John Cheeks. That was on August 26th, I believe. This will be his third year going to the American Association, playing a year and 3/4 with Sioux City before finishing up playing with Gary last year. He only played 9 games, so there's not really much to look at it from his side with Gary. I think he was more productive than he was with Sioux City. He played 79 games with Sioux City and had an average of 203. The year before, he had an average of 317, but he only played in 13 games last year. So he's played a total of like a full season. He played 100 games. So I'm not saying I don't know exactly if he played a full season with Sioux City the year prior to that, but that's what I'm going to go with. Just looking at his baseball reference to a certain extent. I mean, the 13 games he played with Sioux City at a batting average slash line of 317, 415, 512 with the OPS of 927, which is outstanding on that portion of the slugging and the on base percentage was unreal. But that was only in a small sample size. He got more of a sample size last year playing, with Sioux City, 78 games. Slashing 203, 325, and 374 with an OPS of 699. So as you can kind of tell that it went down when he had the full season to play with. So I'm not 100% positive. When you look at where it was going, where it was at. You could have been on heater for 13 games and coming in this year not really being able to, an off year. That's the crazy thing about baseball. It's almost like I know I put a lot of hockey references on here, but I'm a hockey person too. So I always point out that I have my Corey Crawford jersey. For the people that listen on Spotify or don't watch on YouTube, my Corey Crawford jersey that's signed, and then my whole the poster of them winning the 3 cups, and then all my other Blackhawks stuff that I have behind me, which will eventually change because I did get a green screen for Christmas, so I'm probably going to have that behind me so we don't have to look at that. So I'll probably do some other stuff with that. But that's I'm getting sidetracked. What I'm getting at with baseball is almost like a goalie in hockey, because one year they could be the Vezina Trophy caliber. For people that don't know hockey, Vezina Trophy is the best goaltender voted on by the media of the year. So basically the MVP of all goalies in that situation. And then the next year you're a Jack Campbell who gets a big contract and is now playing in the minor leagues because he can't fulfill his duties. So it's just one of those situations where baseball players have its ups and downs, especially in this league, independent baseball in general. I think that's more of a ebbs and flow than what you typically would get in a normal major league season, because most of the times in Major League you play 160 odd games, 80 something, whatever. I always forget what the number is. And here you only play 100. I mean, obviously the 60, 80 games are a big difference because you're closer to 200. So if you go through a weak slump in the MLB, it's not going to affect your numbers as bad, or if you come off to a slow start, or whatever the case may be. But here, it's going to affect if you have a week that you're going 0 for 50. Like, that's going to hurt your batting average and all that other stuff before on your stat line. So it's kind of hard to tell exactly where your ebbs and flows. I mean, you play 78 games with one team, and then you play 9 games with another team, and your batting average is a lot higher, and your OPS and your slugging is a lot higher than it typically is, but that's only 9 games. So it's kind of hard to decipher where you're going with it. And especially still being kind of young. He'll be basically 26. He's 25 right now, being basically 26 when he starts playing. He's getting into his primer portion of his years, I would say. But I guess even in baseball, your prime years can be a little bit later down the road, because you can probably play baseball until you're 40, 50 if you're healthy enough, or depending on what you do. In that situation, unlike other sports where, like, especially football, you're lucky to play. You're lucky to play 3 years in the league. Baseball, hockey, other sports, you're able to, you're 10 years is really, what you're kind of looking at. And then outside of that, 20 it's outstanding. You played 10 years in NFL, and it's just like, wow, that guy had a heck of a career, even if you play 5. Getting sidetracked to where I'm getting at. As I wrote in my article about Miguel Sierra coming back, and this is what I'm probably how it's going to reference itself out, is if there's a signing of a player or any kind of major news, I'll probably have an article first before I have a podcast, just depending on when the news drops, that kind of situation, and I'll get into what might happen later on in my in the season. Before the season starts, so it may get a little bit tricky when I can start uploading stuff like that. That, like I said, that'll be like a little bit later. I know I keep jumping all over the place. But like I said, I think Sierra is going to be probably more of that shortstop role, if not shortstop, potentially third. I think he played in majority was short. I think he played all over except first and outfield, and catcher and pitcher, and so on and so forth. I think he's going to be a more consistent fielder than Lingua was, and that's I know you heard what I just said, and you're like, well, Lingua makes all these amazing plays, and he running up, catching balls in left field that left fielder should have, or diving, and that's great. Listen, that's wonderful. I love watching Lingua play. I think he is a great player. But watching him, it's the routine plays that he seems to falter on. The first year he was with the Railcats, it was on. I'll have to go back and see, but he didn't have hardly any errors. And then it's just been, the last year was a huge number. This year was still a huge number. I'll have to go back and look at it. But I think with what we're looking at for Sierra, is probably a player that you're not going to probably get a lot of those highlight reels. I didn't really watch him play a lot in Sioux City, and he didn't really have a lot of those opportunities with Gary in the 9 games that he played to deem what he's probably going to be. I need to go back this way. Just looking at like his is going to give me his defense. That's so frustrating sometimes about the I'm trying to type and think at the same time with point streak, is that once you click on a player, it just shows his batting, and then it doesn't give him everything. Like, it doesn't give him the defense, it doesn't give you the slugging percentage, it doesn't give you all of that, like, as a season combined. So it's kind of annoying that I have to go back to like Baseball Reference. I have to click through a bunch of different things just to find out one person in that aspect of it. So I really wish that they would update on that portion of it. But looking here just real quick at the fielding of Lingua, his first year in 2021, he only had what is it, 6 errors, and then it went from 13 errors to like 21 errors. He even played in and even had 3 errors that he played when he played with Sioux City. So he still had quite a bit amount of errors that he played with, versus Sierra here, looking for his. He only had 11. So it's not like he and he had 3 the previous year. So like he's going to be more fundamentally sound than Lingual was going to be at short. Now it may take away the unbelievable amount of plays that Lingual made. He was a great shortstop, but I think defensively that was a big falter with him. I mean, he had the offensive production to kind of back his defense, and that's always been a thing about baseball that's always kind of confused me to a certain extent, is that people are going to sacrifice offense versus defense. And I get that, if a guy goes up there, I guess what I'm saying is, if a guy goes up there and he makes 100 errors in a season, right, that's potentially 100 runs that's going to cost you. But he's batting, a 500 and has 100 home runs. This is to the extreme portion of it. You're probably going to take that guy because there's no reason to take him out of the lineup unless you're going to put him in a DH role. But in the instance of looking at Lingual and Sierra, the batting average last year for Lingual with Gary was 258, and looking at Sierra was he was at a 203. So Lingual was obviously batting better than Sierra was at the time that the trade was happened. At that point, it wasn't like the numbers that we saw Lingual have that he did in the previous year. So to me, in this instance, I would rather have the more defensively sound player that you can hide a little bit deeper in your lineup, just because shortstop, I mean, your best player should be at shortstop. And what I mean by best player in that instance is, your best overall player. When you played Little League or in high school, your best player, the player that could probably hit, the player that can field, the player that had the best arm, played at shortstop. Because shortstop really is the most important position, maybe outside of catcher and pitcher, when depending on what league you're in and how, and that could be a debate for a later time, what you're looking at, depending on who can command the field. Because I mean, when you get a little bit older, catchers are the ones that end up being better managers because they are the ones that command the game. They have to understand how the game works, as far as a pitcher, how a pitcher throws, how a batter reacts, and that kind of stuff. So I think a catcher, it depends on where you're at, is the most valuable. But I think outside of that, your shortstop is, when you're younger, that's what you're told. Your shortstop is the best player, and that's just how it naturally is. So in the instance of them getting the most opportunity, I would rather have more of a defensive sound player that you can have there at short and hide him a little bit further in the lineup than having a guy that is subpar average on fielding the routine balls versus the outstanding plays. It's beg or choose on this situation, but I really think that this team, for what they need more of a stability. They don't need the highlight reels. I think that was a big thing last year and the years prior, where the bases would be loaded, there would be 2 outs, a ball would be hit to shortstop, and it would just be a nice routine play, and the ball would be fumbled. And you have nowhere, you scored 2 or 3 more runs, and the game just went out of hand there. The more stability you have in this league, the better off you're going to be in the long terms of things, because I really think that hurt the Railcats in previous years is the team itself. I really not so much in the 2023 seasons, but more in the 2022 season where the offense was really hot. Defensively, the errors killed the team. And last year was a little bit of more of a iffy kind of, it was overall just, I don't think the locker room was together, as I wrote in a previous article, my first article, that thing I posted, talking about, are we really blaming Lamar Rogers for this year failure? I know people were split down the middle on how they feel about that, but that's for a later time, a later date on that situation. So I think if Miguel can show what he did the first year, a little bit with Sioux City, where he played 13 games, had 41 at bats, had the 2 home runs, 7 RBIs. He had a 317 batting average. I think looking at his other lines here, he that year I think it was a 317 for 415 and a 512 for an OPS of 927. So I mean, if that's what he's going to give us, if he's going to give us even in between of that, even if he gives us what we got last year at the 9, when he only played 9 games, where he batted 281, 343, 407 for an OPS of 419, or not 749. I will take that any day. Like, just give me that. Give me the production. Give me the fielding. He's going to be perfectly fine. I think we found a good shortstop / third baseman. So I'm glad to see him back. I think he has some connection to Lamar, and he did play in the Houston organization. Like, as we see the Houston organization kind of keep itself going as to where we're looking at. And I know people are starting, I guess I'll go with Carlos on that one, but he's in that system. He reached AAA in 2021. He's been through the affiliate ranks. He fits the mold that we're finding that Lamar Rogers is, as far as that AAA experience, the work ethic value, that kind of stuff. So I'm expecting big things from Sierra, and looking at what Lamar Rogers had to say. And I'm not going to say Sierra's full first name because I've listened to it. I cannot pronounce it, so I'm just going to go with Miguel because that's the easiest way to put it for me. Was one of the top defensive shortstops in the American Association last season, and provides reliability and experience up the middle. I'm familiar with his overall potential as a player from our time together in Houston Astro organization, where he was a top 10 organizational prospect. In his limited time with the Railcats at the end of 2023 season, it was clear he developed a good rapport with the team's hitting coach, Roman Ortiz, and improving his game plan at the plate. I'll be looking for Miggy to put it all together and live up to his full potential during the 2024 season. So that put it right there. They were together. He was a top 10 guy for the Houston Astros. And realistically speaking, it's so weird. It's so funny that baseball, the more that you kind of get into this and the more you kind of understand when you start listening to people talk, especially in this league, and hearing interviews and players talk, is there's a lot of baseball is such a international sport, and there's so many players that have the ability to play baseball, and there just be slight changes, and really what it comes down to is, I forget who is playing, who plays short for Houston. Was it Bregman? I can't think of, But at the time, Bregman or whoever that shortstop was going to be a lot better than Sierra, and it's just one of those, like, he's getting older and he's getting to that position, like, he's not going to go anywhere necessarily. So it's just like, is it easier just to get rid of him and cut him in that situation? And a lot of it's a politics things. Is you get told one thing and then a new regime comes in, or someone else sees something different, a manager likes someone else differently. It's just, there's so much that goes into it that it's so hard to say, well, the reason this guy's not in the MLB organization is because he just flat out sucks. I mean, if you just go and look at the MILB transactions and see some of the players get released, you're like, why did he get released? Like, you're like, I just, his numbers are good, so why would, it's just the little numbers here changing. So it's just because a player gets released from the affiliate ranks does not mean he's a bad player at all. Now, everyone has their flaws, and sometimes the flaws are what kicks you out, especially more in pitching than hitting and fielding itself, is because pitching is, do you have lack of control? Is your velocity not there? Like, there's a lot of things that go into the pitching side of things versus the hitting side. Hitting and fielding can be so, the margin of error can be so minuscule that it's just depending on what player you necessarily like better. And in this case, it might have been that for Sierra. So him coming over and his batting changing in 9 games is huge. And, the approach to the plate and all the other situation that Sierra's has had, I think if he gets a full season and he's able to keep training the offseason and keep going forward, he's going to be one of the better players for the Railcats, and could eventually end up in that, a top, a leadoff hitter role, or third or fifth. I wouldn't say necessarily your cleanup hitter, but maybe he could be your second. He could be your top, in your top 3, getting the most at bats or whatever the case may be. I don't really think we're going to see too much speed from him, as he's only stolen 2 bases in his 2 years in the American Association. So I don't really think that we're going to see a lot of speed from him. So I necessarily don't say that we were going to probably put him up at the first position as to hitting, or as to, like, the leadoff hitter. Maybe just someone that could be able to drive in runs. I want to see if I can find his I have to go back to 2023. I don't know if it's really going to show you, but what I want, the one statistic that I'm really been intrigued by is the runs created. And let's see, what he, in his short time with the Railcats, his runs created was 4.457. Just for example, the top dog was Gio Diaz, and his runs created was 54.98, which runs created counts for a lot of different things. I'll pull up the actual definition of it. That's one thing I was really interested in with. Runs created is a baseball statistic used to estimate the number of runs a hitter contributes to his team. Runs created equals the production of the sums of walks and hits minus the times caught stealing and the sum of total bases, and 0.55 of stolen bases divided by the sum of walks and bats. I know that's a lot of that. I'll This is the definition. Runs created estimates a player offense contribution to terms of total runs. It combines the player's ability to get on base with his ability to hit for extra bases. Then it divides those two by the player's total opportunities. So, for example, I'm just reading this from the baseball glossary. For example, in 631 opportunities, at bats plus walks, player A had 377 total bases in 2014, with the 66 walks and 95 hits by the formula, a very basic version of the formula which doesn't include base running, doubles, etc. A player has created 156 runs in the 14th season. So I just think that is a big one to kind of look at, is what they've done um, offensively, and all that kind of combines everything that they've done to kind of help create runs. It may not show up in the RBI column or whatever the case may be, but that's just something that I like to look at as well. Seeing, those numbers are can be outrageously huge, as majority of the top, when you look at Gio Diaz having a 54, and his RBIs were 33. So like he created more offense than actually shown in that scheme of things. It kind of takes your runs and your RBIs and kind of makes it an average, basically, is what I kind of get out of that one. But yeah, so that's a huge thing. Now looking at Carlos Machado. He is from Venezuela, 25 years old. He is 6'2", 170 pounds. He plays the outfield and throws right and bats right as well. He was a free agent signing in 2014 with the Houston Astros. So I don't necessarily know, because this was right around the time, and it doesn't say it in the Railcats article that they put out, that they met, because at the time Carlos was with the Greenfield Astros. It could have been around the time that Lamar Rogers was the manager, but that was also the time that he got promoted. So I'm not 100% positive if they ever managed together or played together, and it wasn't mentioned, so I don't think so. I think the overlap just missed, because it was that in betweenish, so I don't know 100% positive. So when I was looking at the Baseball Reference, it showed that Carlos didn't play since 2022, and I think he's been in the Venezuela League, so that's not going to show up on Baseball Reference. So I'm not 100% positive what his numbers and statistics were that were going to prove, what he's done. He played 1 year in the Frontier League, which was with Tri-City, and which was kind of funny because he played in the Tri-City when they were, I believe, when they were still affiliated. Yes, he did play, I think in 2018, 52 games. He slashed 304, 346, and 412 for an OPS of 758. So really, that was I would say that's pretty good. What we're looking at, if he can give us that. I mean, I think he's had a couple up and down years, but I mean, that was at low A, so really, you would expect the numbers to kind of be a little bit higher, whatever the case may be, on that front of it. But looking more at it, just looking at his 7th season, combining affiliated ball, foreign ball, and the Frontier League, he played 271 games, had 951 at bats, scored 122 runs, got 276 hits, 30 doubles, 9 triples, 6 home runs, and 105 RBIs. He stole 44 bases and got caught 19 times. He walked 51 and struck out 147. He slashed 290, 337, slugging of 360, and his OPS was 697, and his fielding was 984. Just my idea of him is, I think he's going to be able to hit towards the upper portion of the lineup. He may not necessarily give a lot of power, but that could necessarily change, because I believe this is what Lamar had to say about Machado. Machado is a career 290 plus hitter over several levels during his time in the Houston organization, said Rogers. Spending last season playing in Venezuela, he is now hitting for power along with average. He also provides flexibility in the outfield with the ability to play all 3 positions. Motivated to return to an MLB affiliate, Carlos is excited and appreciative of his opportunity with our organization, and I look forward to seeing the player he becomes since his/our time in Houston. So I think maybe they did play a little bit together. It's so hard to decipher that one. But this is the type of repertoire that Lamar Rogers is pulling is people that want to get back, that are motivated to get back. And I think all the players that you have seen so far are players that want to move to the next step, that want to get that experience, that want to keep playing, that want to show MLB teams that they still can do it. And I really think that's the type that you get that drive, you get that hunger, which is going to create a friendly competitive culture inside the locker room, where it's about driving the next person to be better, to seeing the team succeed by driving that next person. I think that's what I don't think it's a bad thing to have that healthy competition, because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need that in any level of any sport. The next time you have someone pushing each other, that's what's going to make it better. And I think that's what you're starting to see here with the Railcats and what Lamar Rogers is going to do. So I getting away from his, that was, I think, looking at Carlos's numbers, he may not have necessarily looked good in the power department as what I would think that we're kind of going for a potential outfielder. But I mean, you're going to have to fill the outfield somehow in some way, and we don't know what's going on with Castillo. We don't know what's going on with Mariaga or Del Valle. But I mean, if you're going to look at it, I would probably say, if we bring all three of those players back, I would probably say that Del Valle would be that odd man out that we're probably going to put more in a DH role. I think it would be a switch between him and Castillo, switching at DH role on that portion of him, because I think Machado is going to be that better outfielder that can probably play everywhere. And if they want to spare Mariaga a game, to not necessarily like take him out of the lineup, but just spare him a game defensively, I think that's what you're going to need. I think that's we lacked a little bit of that last year, the outfield depth, and players can, really the star outfielder was Mariaga, and then you had two average players in the outfield. And that's just that. I'm just sorry if if that offends anyone, but that's just there's a lot of blame that can go either way on the fielding of both Castillo and Del Valle on that portion of it. So if you have another solid outfielder, you can hide another outfielder. I mean, I know I can't necessarily say, because when you get to this point, you can't necessarily say, oh, we're just going to stick him in right field and we'll hide him there. That's not how the case. And you still need two corner outfielders that are good, because players are going to be able to hit both left and right, and they both need arms to make plays. So you can't necessarily say, we'll throw him in right field and it'll be fine on that portion of it. So just looking at his numbers, I really think that he's going to come in being able to hit for clutch power, or not clutch power, but being able to hit in the clutch, which is something I think the Railcats lacked last year. I really like to know like the batting average of the team when a player was in scoring position, so second or third. I would really like to know. I know a lot of people are like, well, that's not really, the number's not really satisfactory to some people, but I mean, if you're batting a 500 when people are in scoring position, you're scoring potentially 2 to 3 runs, or anywhere from 1 to 3 runs if they hit a home run or whatever the case may be, versus someone hitting .05. Like, you're not really scoring a lot of runs. So I think that was a big thing last year. I mean, I think I took one game last year, and I think it was a game that the Railcats got their butts handed to them, and the other team had I think 11 opportunities to score runs when a runner in scoring position, and they did, I think, 7. So only like 5-ish times, or 12. Math, I can't do it right now. Anyways, and the Railcats had like 15 and they only scored 3 times. Like that is changes the momentum of a game. If you have one out and a runner on second, you can't bring him in. Like, that's one run that you didn't score, or one out and a runner on third. At least you didn't even get a sacrifice fly out of the situation. So I think they just need those kind of players, and this is going to get into a debate that I'm probably going to have next week if there are no there's no anyone being signed or the case may team, and I'm not taking up more than 30 minutes of your time. Is this was brought to my attention to a certain extent, is that I'm still a person that likes advanced metrics in baseball, but also like to look at your baseline of like batting average and stuff like that. I know people like batting average doesn't tell the whole story. Well, most numbers don't tell the entire story, exactly how a player is, and I'll get into all of that other statistics stuff, and then probably next week's podcast if we don't have like a bunch of signings. But we'll probably talk about why I like looking at batting average and on base and slugging and like the base numbers that you normally get, because that tells a little bit more of the story. But for a quick definition of how I feel about batting average is, yes, batting average doesn't show you how far you hit the ball, or when you hit the ball, where did it go. It doesn't show you all of that, but it shows you how consistent you are at hitting. Like, it's cool, you can hit the ball. Every time you hit the ball, you hit a home run, you score at least one run. That's cool. And every 10 at bats, like, okay, maybe every 2 games, that's nice, but like, you're not doing anything else. You're scoring one run, a minimum of 1 run, a maximum of 4. You hit a grand slam, looked really good. We'll ignore that game, but you only hit a solo home run and the team still lost 10-1. Like, you weren't producing anything outside. That's a whole debate for another time that when I get to, but I'm just saying, I would rather take a guy that's going to hit for 350 versus a guy that's going to hit for 200 and give me a home run every so often. But well, that's for a different time, for a different talk. I mean, the numbers also go into other stuff on that portion of it. But just looking at his league average, or his 7-year average, batting at 290 is a huge positive for the Railcats, bringing that person in. He's, like I said, he's not going to hit for a lot of power. Obviously, his slugging was 360, so there wasn't a lot of home runs in there. He only hit 6 home runs in 7 years and had 9 triples and 30 doubles. Like, he's not going to be that player that is going to necessarily be the main guy that's going to drive people in from first or second. He's just going to be that guy that can continuously move the line forward, and sometimes you need that. You need a guy that can just move the line forward. If it's just bringing a guy from second to third, and you're bringing in another guy that's known more for his power hitting, that could probably get the ball into the outfield for at least a sac fly, or sometimes you need that. And him playing the Venezuela League, he might be better in his power. His swing might be different. He might just be better than what we're expecting. So I don't want to say, we look at the numbers and we say, yeah, well, he doesn't do this, or this. Well, there's a year in between where he didn't play. That's not necessarily true. Just Baseball Reference doesn't have it up. And sometimes you don't know where exactly a player is going to play, or look up their statistics, because it goes down a rabbit hole of things that I don't understand yet. So, yeah. Now, that kind of wraps it up for, I think these are 2 good signings, very good signings for Lamar Rogers. He continues to bring in the guys that we're consistently known for, that he's known for. I think he's finding his stride in the player that he wants, and the player that he wants, that he knows he can succeed with. So this will be a big season. I know we're not all there quite yet. And then there's one thing before I forget that I wanted. So this podcast might be a little bit longer than normal, that I want to get into real quick. I think it was, let me see if it's going to pop up the, no, I have to go to Twitter for this, or X. Was it, Steve Schuster put out a thing, if that's the metrics of if I can find it. I know it's just the projection. So Steve Strukes put numbers for the 2024 projections, which awesome, great, love that this is being done. This is really awesome. But the issue is when you look at, like, so when you first go there, the projections of the teams, there's only one team that has over 15 players signed, and that's Cleburne at 19. And right now, Chicago has 0, technically, of what and Kansas City has 0. So I don't know if that's 100% true, but this is just what it was at the time of January 18th. And then, Gary has a total of 11 players signed. And it's just one of those, like, yeah, that's cool. But, like, how are you going to predict a team's ability to be... not so much like the team themselves, because we'll take it for what it is for the team. That's cool. Whatever the case may be, like right now, the Railcats are a win probability of 0.37. Like, obviously, with 11 players signed, you have just enough for the team itself to fill all 9 positions and have a middle reliever and a closer, basically. Like that's cool. And nothing's gonna see that. But like what I like seeing from here is maybe more of like the batter predictions. And right now, the only one that was on there at the time, because he didn't put in the rest of them, and I think he's only basing it off of players that have been in the American Association, was Marco Gonzalez. And it has him, his average being a 270, his OPS being an 829. I don't know what and I think he has his, oh, actually, my bad. He has more of the players here. So he has, nope, Carlos Machado is on there. So just looking at just going through some of the players, just looking at more of their average and their OPS, because they really have that. I don't know what WOBA is, and the WAR. That's always a complicated one for me because you don't really get a lot of changes. So I'm just looking at the average and the OPS. And it has everyone at 400 plate appearances, so that always fluctuates itself. But it has Carlos Machado at 6 home runs, 20 stolen bases, average of 224, OPS of 621. Andres Noriega is on there as well. He has 11 home runs, 2 stolen bases at 227, and an OPS of 650. And then Miguel Sierra's on here, 14 home runs, 3 stolen bases, a 233 average, OPS of 767. Let's see here. Next page. Carlos Rincon, we have at 14 home runs, 4 stolen bases, an average of 261, OPS of 786. Then Carlos Martinez, 12 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 266, OPS of 794. And then Marcos Gonzalez, 19 home runs, 3 stolen bases, an average of 270, OPS of 828. I think that might be majority of what we have. Yeah, so really looking at that aspect of it, obviously the averages and the OPS, the numbers quite aren't there, but you have to take it for a grain of salt because you're taking players that necessarily haven't played in the American Association or that really haven't shown quite a bit on that one. And the top average right now is from Winnipeg. Dason Cruz has four home runs, 3 stolen bases, an average of 333, OPS of 859. So that's your top dog, and obviously they don't have anyone for the Railcats in that. Looking at the pitchers threshold here, we're just gonna go from the top ERA down to the bottom, basically. First one's gonna be Nate Alexander, and so it's going off of games played, games started, innings pitched, and the game started and games played are 20. So they're taking him as a starting pitcher, so that always can fluctuate. An inning pitched at 100, obviously, to make it easier. Nate Alexander, looking at walks is 47, strikeouts 91, home runs 19, and his ERA being at 370. So he's the only one that's technically in the green, and the rest of the pitchers are more in the orange red color. The next one, we have Tia Tiedemann. He has 33 walks, 76 strikeouts, 15 home runs, an ERA of 4.88. Julio Pinto is at 46 walks, 82 strikeouts, and 16 home runs, giving up for 5.82 ERA. And then we have Dane Olivero. He is 48 walks, 76 strikeouts, 17 home runs, and a 6.86. And then down at the very bottom is going to be Edward Cuello at 36 walks, 56 strikeouts, 18 home runs given up, and then the ERA of 7.12. Small sample sizes. Some of these pitchers aren't going to be starters. Some of them are going to be relievers. Like, awesome. I love it. I love the numbers because I like also how that it's color coordinated. So it's if you go to the American Association Twitter page or Facebook page, they have it up. I think it's under I think growing. It says Twitter is Growing Cast, but at the website itself is Steve Schuster a bunch of other AJ. Just go to the I may leave the link also down so you can look at it for yourself, or just go to the American Association Facebook or Twitter page, and it'll have it up there, or X page, whatever you want to call it, on Instagram. I think it's on Instagram too. I think it's on all their platforms, so you should be able to find it there. I think it's just very interesting to see if these, I'm going to see the next time someone gets added, and I'm going to go on here and see if it's there, because this is something that would be interesting to see where everything is at for the numbers and people that are in it, and like to see where everything is. Some of the stuff I don't quite know yet, and the winning percentage and all the other stuff is like, this is not a full team yet, so we can't just say, hey, yeah, you know what, go ahead and we're gonna stamp it, send it, let it go. So just for people that I think it's more of an intriguement for the batter projections and the pitch projections than it is the team projections, because not everyone has a full team. So obviously, if you have 19 players signed, you're more than likely going to win the American Association Miles Wolf Cup. Like, that's just actually how it goes. But we're not at that point yet. So a little bit of update personally for me is, as everyone knows, that I do work in retail, and the position that I do have now really allows me to watch games, to break down games, and watch them live, and via social media, and attend as many games as I possibly can, just because it's normally from 6 to 2 or 7 to 3 Monday through Friday, occasionally some weekends that I have to work, but with a change in management to a certain extent, there is a manager who is pregnant, who's going to be going on maternity leave, basically. I'm going to step into her role, so my schedule goes from nice 8 hours a day in the morning, home at night, going to go from 10 hours a day to opening, closing, working majority weekends. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the podcast is going to go from here. Now, it's going to be more, I know I haven't been very consistent in what I've been doing, and I take that as a lack of me just being lazy, or other things like the bathroom being remodeled. I had this week, my cousin didn't come because he had to work, so I was able to kind of do a little bit more, or relax, or the case may be, and I'm trying to get majority of my I am getting through all of the Harry Potter books, I'm on the Deathly Hallows right now. I want to finish that up before January is over with. Get in a couple more books before the season starts, because then I won't be reading at all. So it's just kind of been a combination of just trying to keep myself from burning out of doing. Not saying that I would, because I would love to do this as a living, but I kind of can't. And there's other things that I would like to get done and like to do. So just trying to crunch everything into the off season together. But that's going to be at the end of February, and it could go on for 3 months. So it's probably going to leak into a little bit of May. So I don't know if it's going to be a permanent position, if I'll go back to my old position. I don't know what's going on. It depends on, all that kind of stuff. But for right now, the hope is for the All-Star break that I'll be there, because it's kind of funny that the White Sox are playing Kansas City the weekend prior, that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the American Association All-Star game down in Kansas City. So my wife and I are planning that, probably going to get tickets, and we're going to go. And then make a whole kind of week out of going to Kansas City, going to St. Louis. So probably the week after the All-Star break, there probably won't be too much to being said, because I'll probably be venturing with my wife and making her happy and stuff like that. So I'm hopefully going to, knock on wood, going to be able to go to my first All-Star game down in Kansas City. That's going to be a lot of fun, I think. But that's just little bit things that are going to be changing. Is the schedule and how things might be. It might be beneficial to a certain extent, because sometimes I'm going to have days where I'm off during the middle of the week, so I'll be able to do more. Or there's going to be days where I may close, and then I may close the next day, and I can come home, and hopefully the game will be uploaded and I can watch it and then do a podcast. Or be off the next day, or so it might be more beneficial on the aspect of, I may not be able to go to a game, or I might not, there might be a couple days where I close in a row and there's things I get done at home. I won't be able to go, I probably won't be at more games that I was this year than I last year to this year. But I think on the aspect of the podcast side, it's going to be, I'll have more podcasts out. Like more game recaps out quicker and faster than it was. Okay, I'll come home at, say they play on a Wednesday, I'll come home, try to record something really quick and get that out before the next game starts, so I don't, and I'll have that ability to maybe do post-game shows after the games themselves. I might be able to do a little bit more on that aspect of it, but that's just something that I'm going to have to see what's going to happen. I may rely on me being able to post more on the website, which if you haven't gone to, it's just railcasttalk.com. Just right now, it's very bare minimum. The very front page is all the posts that I have, and I'm trying to get all that kind of wrapped around the websites. Making websites is not easy. If you ever done it, it's not easy, and I'm not the brightest crayon in the box to be doing it either. So it's been a whirlwind of works for me trying to get that done. So that's gonna wrap it up for me. So for right now, I'm gonna try to keep it to Sundays, Mondays podcast getting put out, just depending on what's going on for the week on that aspect of it. So if you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter. But just sign up on my website to get updates on when stuff goes out. Follow me on all social media platforms, that kind of stuff. So yeah, one thing before I forget, if I'm able to upload stuff, because what I'm hoping for the website is just to be able to be at a one-stop shop. Would you guys prefer me to put the link of the YouTube channel or the link to the Spotify? I know most people do Spotify, but right now I know majority of my listeners are on YouTube. But which one would you more likely prefer to just click on the link and it would go to that? It'll bring you to the website, and then it'll bring you to the link that you need to go to listen to it, if that's how you do it, or if you just subscribe to it. I'm just curious, which one would you guys prefer? So I'll leave that one for you guys if you've made it that far into the podcast. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for me. Enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening, whenever you listen to this, and go Cats.
The 0-2. Swing and a miss, strike three. Wrap this one up in green and white.